It was a dreary Wednesday afternoon when Jack McCallister stepped into the neon-lit lobby of Chronoventures, a travel agency known for catering to the most eccentric whims of its clients. The air in the room hummed with the tantalizing promise of adventure as posters of destinations from every epoch adorned the walls. Ancient Rome, the French Revolution, even the distant future. Behind the counter, a slender woman with a tight bun and a name tag that read Veronica was meticulously filing papers. She looked up as Jack approached, her eyes narrowing slightly in appraisal. "Welcome to Chrono Ventures, where time is just another destination," she said, her voice a delicate blend of enthusiasm and professionalism. "What can I help you with today, sir?" Jack grinned, unable to suppress the excitement bubbling up inside him. "I want to book a trip to 1976, specifically the set of the TV show Kojak. I'm a huge fan of Telly Savalas, and I want to watch him film a scene." Veronica's brows knit together in confusion, and her lips curled into a disapproving frown. "Of all the places and times you could visit, you want to spend your money on a 1970s TV set? Surely there must be more worthwhile experiences to explore," she said, a tinge of incredulity in her voice. Jack frowned, his excitement dampened by her reaction. "I don't see how that's any of your business. I'm the customer, and I'll choose where and when I want to go." Veronica crossed her arms and sighed, her disapproval evident. "It's just that we've never had a request like this before. People usually want to witness historic events or explore exotic locations, not watch a scene being filmed on a TV set. I'm just trying to ensure you get the most out of your investment." "I don't care what other people do," Jack snapped, his frustration mounting. "Kojak means a lot to me. It's a reminder of a simpler time when I'd watch it with my father. You don't know anything about me, so don't presume to tell me what I should or shouldn't do with my money." Veronica's expression softened, her earlier judgment giving way to understanding. "I apologize if I've offended you. I just want our clients to have the best experience possible. But if this is truly what you want, I'll arrange it for you." As Jack handed over his payment information, the tension in the room dissipated. He knew that, to some, his choice might seem frivolous. But for him, the opportunity to revisit a treasured memory was priceless, and no matter what anyone else thought, he was going to make the most of his journey to 1976. Several days later, Jack found himself standing in front of the entrance to Chrono Ventures once again, this time with a bag packed for his trip to 1976. He took a deep breath to calm his nerves, the anticipation of finally witnessing the filming of Kojak causing his heart to race. As he stepped inside, he noticed that the lobby was considerably more crowded than on his previous visit. A group of tourists were huddled around a display of medieval armor, excitedly discussing their upcoming trip to the time of King Arthur. At the counter, Veronica was busy attending to another customer. She noticed Jack and waved him over. "Ah, Mr. McCallister," she said with a smile. "I have everything prepared for your trip. Your departure will be in 30 minutes. In the meantime, you can relax in our waiting area." Jack nodded and took a seat, his eyes wandering around the room, examining the posters of different eras. He couldn't help but feel a pang of envy as he overheard other travelers discussing their plans to witness the signing of the Declaration of Independence, or to walk among the dinosaurs. However, he quickly shook off the feeling, reminding himself of the personal significance of his own journey. As he sat there, lost in thoughts of the cherished moments he had shared with his father, a stranger approached him. "Excuse me," said the man, a tall figure with a bushy beard and a friendly smile. "I couldn't help but overhear your conversation with the agent the other day. You're going to see Kojak, right?" Jack hesitated for a moment, then replied, "Yes, that's right. I'm a huge fan, and it's something I've always wanted to do." The stranger's eyes lit up. "I grew up watching that show, too. I've always admired Telly Savalas's acting. You know, your choice might not be as popular as visiting ancient Egypt or meeting Shakespeare, but I think it's a fantastic idea. Sometimes it's the smaller, personal experiences that truly matter." Jack smiled, grateful for the unexpected validation. "Thanks, that means a lot. You're right, it's not always about the big moments in history. Sometimes it's about the memories that make us who we are." As the time for his departure drew near, Jack felt a renewed sense of purpose and excitement. As he stepped into the time machine, he knew that, no matter what anyone else thought, he was making the right choice for himself. And with that, he embarked on his journey to 1976, eager to relive the magic of Kojak and the memories that made it so special to him. The time machine hummed to life, the air around Jack crackling with energy as it propelled him backward through the decades. Moments later, he stumbled out onto the bustling streets of New York City in 1976, the unmistakable sound of honking taxis and lively chatter filling his ears. He looked around, excitement surging through him as he realized he had arrived at his destination. Jack followed the directions provided by Chrono Ventures, weaving through the throngs of people until he reached the set of Kojak. He marveled at the crew members rushing about, preparing for the day's shoot. There in the middle of it all stood the man himself, Telly Savalas, resplendent in his signature fedora and trench coat. As Jack watched in awe, he couldn't help but feel like an intruder. He knew that he should maintain a low profile and avoid disrupting the scene, but his enthusiasm got the better of him. He inched closer, hoping to get a better look at his idol, unaware of the peril that lay ahead. Suddenly Jack tripped over a stray cable, sprawling forward just as a nearby crew member lifted a heavy lighting fixture. Jack's outstretched hand caught the base of the fixture, sending it crashing down towards the set. It happened so fast that no one had time to react. The fixture landed with a sickening thud directly on top of Telly Savalas. The entire set went silent, the shocked faces of the crew reflecting the gravity of the situation. Jack's heart sank as he realized the unthinkable had occurred. In his eagerness to get closer, he had inadvertently caused the death of the very person he had come to see. Panic set in as the set erupted into chaos. The crew rushed to Telly's side while others began shouting and pointing fingers at Jack. Realizing that he was now a target, Jack fled the scene, his mind racing with thoughts of the consequences he would face. Back at the Chrono Ventures office, Veronica received an urgent message from the company's control center. A terrible accident had occurred during Jack's trip, and he needed to be brought back immediately. Fear and guilt washed over her as she initiated the emergency retrieval protocol. As Jack stumbled into an alley, the time machine's retrieval system activated, and he was whisked back to the present. He arrived at Chrono Ventures disoriented and distraught, the weight of his actions bearing down on him. Veronica rushed over, her face a mix of concern and disbelief. "What happened, Mr. McCallister? We've received reports of a serious incident on the Kojak set." Jack could barely speak, his voice choked with emotion. I I accidentally killed Telly Savalas." Both Veronica and Jack knew that this tragedy would have far-reaching consequences, not just for them, but for the entire timeline. As they faced the grim reality of their situation, they couldn't help but wonder if some experiences were better left untouched and some memories better preserved in the past. In the days following the disastrous trip, Chrono Ventures scrambled to assess and mitigate the damage caused by Jack's actions. The company's team of temporal analysts discovered that Telly Savalas' untimely death had triggered a chain reaction of events, altering the course of history in ways both large and small. The cancellation of Kojak following Savalas' death left a void in the television landscape, leading to the premature rise of other crime dramas that had never originally gained traction. As a result, the careers of several actors and directors shifted, some flourishing while others faded into obscurity. The impact of the altered timeline didn't stop there. With the increased popularity of the new crime dramas, a fascination with law enforcement and detective work grew among the general public. This eventually led to an increase in funding for police departments and a surge in the demand for criminal justice education, changing the way law enforcement functioned in the following decades. As the ripples from Jack's actions continued to spread, Chrono Ventures faced intense scrutiny from regulatory bodies and the media. The company's reputation was tarnished, and their stock prices plummeted. The once revered travel agency was now seen as a dangerous, unregulated entity that had tampered with the fabric of history. In the face of mounting pressure, Chrono Ventures was forced to take drastic measures. Jack, devastated by the consequences of his actions, willingly agreed to participate in an experimental procedure aimed at reversing the effects of his trip. The plan was to send Jack back to the moment before the accident, with his memory wiped of the previous events, in the hope that he would make different choices and prevent the tragedy from occurring. With Jack's consent, Veronica initiated the procedure, her fingers trembling as she entered the coordinates and set the machine in motion. She knew that the success of the mission hinged on Jack's ability to make the right decisions, free from the burden of his previous memories. As Jack vanished into the swirling vortex of time, Veronica couldn't help but feel a sense of foreboding. She knew that the stakes were higher than ever, and that the fate of Chrono Ventures, and perhaps even history itself, rested in Jack's hands. In 1976, Jack arrived on the Kojak set once more, unaware of the events that had unfolded before. As he navigated the busy streets of New York City, he felt an inexplicable urge to keep a safe distance from the set. This time, he watched from afar, his admiration for Telly Savalas and the show undiminished, but tempered by an unspoken instinct to protect the memories he held dear. Back in the present, Veronica and the team at Chronoventures anxiously awaited the results of their intervention. As the timeline recalibrated itself, they held their breath, hoping that their efforts to undo the damage had been successful, and that the delicate balance of history had been restored. Jack's decision to keep his distance from the set seemed like the right choice. Unbeknownst to him, however, fate had other plans. As he observed the Kojak filming from afar, he failed to notice a car idling nearby with a distracted driver behind the wheel. It was an unfortunate coincidence that Jimmy Carter, the Democratic presidential candidate, happened to be in the area meeting with supporters. The distracted driver's foot slipped off the brake pedal, causing the car to lurch forward. In a split second, the vehicle plowed into the crowd, fatally striking both Telly Savalas and Jimmy Carter. The horrified onlookers gasped, their screams echoing through the streets of New York City. Once again, Jack's presence had led to an even more catastrophic outcome than before. He stood there, frozen in shock, as the terrible scene unfolded before him. He had no way of knowing that his actions had inadvertently claimed the lives of two prominent figures, drastically altering the course of history once more. In the present, the team at Chronoventures watched in horror as the timeline shifted again, revealing the devastating consequences of the second attempt to correct the past. The unexpected death of Jimmy Carter sent shock waves through the nation, causing political turmoil and reshaping the presidential race. The absence of Carter's influence led to different policies and global relationships, fundamentally changing the course of American history. The tragic loss of both Telly Savalas and Jimmy Carter forced Chronoventures to confront the reality that their attempts to restore the original timeline had only compounded the problem. The company was now facing even more intense scrutiny and the very real possibility of being shut down by the authorities. Desperate and out of options, Veronica and her team convened an emergency meeting to discuss their next course of action. They knew that further attempts to intervene in the past might only worsen the situation, but they couldn't ignore the enormity of the consequences they had unwittingly unleashed. In the end, they decided to pursue one last risky plan. They would send a highly trained operative back in time to monitor Jack's actions, ensuring that he did not interfere with the lives of Telly Savalas or Jimmy Carter. The operative would remain invisible to Jack, acting as a guardian of sorts, with the sole purpose of preserving the original timeline. With the weight of history on their shoulders, Veronica and the Chronoventures team prepared for their final attempt to right the wrongs they had caused. As they set their plan in motion, they could only hope that their actions would restore the delicate balance of the past and secure a future in which the memories of Telly Savalas, Jimmy Carter, and the countless lives affected by their actions remained untarnished. The highly trained operative, codenamed Echo, stepped out of the time machine and into the bustling streets of 1976 New York City. He had been briefed on the importance of his mission and the potential consequences if he failed. He knew he had to keep a close eye on Jack while remaining undetected in order to prevent any further disruptions to the timeline. As Echo shadowed Jack from a distance, he became aware of a guest star on the Kojak set, Raquel Welch. Her striking beauty and charisma were hard to ignore, even for someone as focused and disciplined as Echo. For a brief moment he found himself distracted by her elegance and the alluring sight of the starlet. Unbeknownst to Echo, that momentary lapse in concentration would prove to be disastrous. As he was momentarily captivated by Raquel Welch, Jack had ventured closer to the Kojak set. At the same time, Jimmy Carter was making his way through the crowd, shaking hands with supporters, and a young boy visiting from North Carolina, Michael Jordan, excitedly explored the city with his family. In a cruel twist of fate, Jack accidentally bumped into a food cart that was being pushed by a vendor. The cart careened out of control, heading straight for a nearby fire hydrant. When the cart collided with the hydrant, it created a powerful geyser of water that sent people scrambling for cover. In the midst of the chaos, Telly Savalas, Jimmy Carter, and young Michael Jordan were caught in the path of the surging water. They were knocked off their feet and tragically suffered fatal injuries as they collided with nearby objects. When Echo realized what had happened, his heart sank. He had failed in his mission, and the consequences were far graver than anyone at Chronoventures could have anticipated. With the deaths of Telly Savalas, Jimmy Carter, and a promising young Michael Jordan, the timeline had been irreversibly altered. Back in the present, the Chrono Ventures team watched in despair as the new timeline unfolded before them. The loss of Jimmy Carter had lasting political implications, while the world would never know the extraordinary basketball legacy that Michael Jordan could have built. Chrono Ventures faced the sobering reality that their attempts to fix the past had only created more devastation. As the authorities closed in, Veronica and her team knew they had no choice but to cease operations and accept responsibility for the tragedies they had caused. The once thriving company was now a cautionary tale of the immense power and responsibility that came with manipulating time. For Jack, the repercussions of his time travel vacation were profound. He had set out to relive a cherished memory and instead had inadvertently changed the course of history. The weight of his actions would remain with him for the rest of his life, a solemn reminder of the delicate balance of time and the unforeseen consequences of even the smallest choices. Epilogue. In the years following the tragic events set in motion by Jack's ill-fated trip to 1976, the world experienced significant changes as the new timeline took root. The impact of the lost lives rippled through history, transforming the fates of individuals, industries, and nations alike. In the world of television, the untimely death of Telly Savalas and the cancellation of Kojak led to a profound shift in the landscape of crime dramas. A new generation of series emerged, exploring darker and more complex themes. The course of television history was altered, and the influence of Kojak and Telly Savalas became a distant memory, an echo of what might have been. In the absence of Jimmy Carter, the 1976 presidential election saw Gerald Ford, the incumbent president, winning the election against a less popular Democratic candidate. Ford's administration took a more aggressive stance on Cold War policies, leading to heightened tensions between the United States and the Soviet Union. Domestically, Ford's economic policies prioritized business interests and deregulation, which resulted in a period of economic growth, but also widened the income gap between the rich and the poor. In the world of basketball, the NBA was dramatically impacted by the loss of Michael Jordan. Without his undeniable talent, the Chicago Bulls never experienced their dominant run in the 1990s. Instead, other teams such as the Detroit Pistons, Los Angeles Lakers, and Boston Celtics maintained their supremacy in the league. In Jordan's absence, new stars emerged, but none could quite match his unique blend of athleticism, skill, and charisma. The NBA entered a period of relative parity, with no single team or player dominating the league as Jordan and the Bulls would have. The popularity of basketball grew at a slower pace as the absence of a transcendent figure like Jordan meant there were fewer iconic moments and rivalries to captivate fans around the world. As a result, basketball's global expansion was stunted, and the sport never quite reached the same heights of popularity it would have enjoyed with Michael Jordan as its ambassador. Instead, other sports, such as soccer and baseball, experienced greater international growth, leaving the NBA to ponder what might have been if fate had not intervened on that fateful day in 1976. As for Chrono Ventures, the company was forced to shut down in the wake of the devastating accidents it had inadvertently caused. The scandal surrounding their operations led to a global ban on time travel, with governments around the world enacting strict legislation to prevent any further tampering with the past. The once promising field of time travel was relegated to the realm of science fiction, its potential forever tarnished by the weight of human error. Jack lived out the rest of his days haunted by the consequences of his actions. He became an advocate for the responsible use of technology, dedicating his life to educating others about the ethical implications of scientific advancements. Though he could never undo the damage he had caused, he found a measure of solace in working to ensure that no one else would make the same mistakes he had. In time, the world moved on, adapting to the new reality that had been shaped by a single man's desire to revisit the past. The story of Jack McCallister, Chrono Ventures, and the lives that were lost became a cautionary tale, a reminder of the fragility of history and the profound responsibility that comes with wielding the power to change it.